We have the best workers on earth here in Flint and here in Michigan. We work harder and we work better. Here in Flint, it was the private sector and American workers that helped turn lumber into the wagons that sent this country west. It was the American worker that built the tanks that faced down fascism and that turned out the automobiles that were the cornerstone of America's manufacturing boom. But at critical moments of transition like this one, success has also depended on national leadership, political leadership, that moved the country forward with confidence and a common purpose. That's what our founding fathers did after winning independence, when they tied together the economies of the 13 states and created the American market. That's what Lincoln did right in the middle of the Civil War. He pushed for a transcontinental railroad. He incorporated our National Academy of Sciences. He passed the Homestead Act. He created our system of land-grant colleges. That's what FDR did in confronting capitalism's gravest crisis, when he forged the social safety net, built the Hoover Dam, created the Tennessee Valley Authority, and invested in an arsenal of democracy. And that's what Kennedy did in the dark days of the Cold War, when he called us to a new frontier, created the Apollo program, and put us on a pathway to the moon. This was leadership that had the strength to turn moments of adversity into opportunity. Leadership that had the wisdom to see a little further down the road and around that next corner. Leadership that had the courage to challenge conventional thinking and worn ideas so that we could reinvent our economy to seize the future. And unfortunately, that's not the kind of leadership that we've seen out of Washington recently. But that's the kind of leadership I intend to provide when I am President of the United States of America. These past 8 years will be remembered for misguided policies, missed opportunities, a rigid and ideological adherence to discredited ideas. Almost a decade into this century, we still have no real strategy to compete in a global economy. Almost a decade into this century, Governor Granholm, Congressman Dignam have not had a partner in the White House to figure out how we are going to rebuild the manufacturing base here in Michigan. Just think of what we could have done over the last 8 years. We could have made a real commitment to a world-class education for our children. But instead, we passed No Child Left Behind, a law that, however well-intended, left the money behind, alienated teachers and principals instead of inspiring teachers and principals. We could have done something to end our addiction to oil, but instead we continued down a path that funds both sides of the war on terror, endangers our planet, and has left Americans struggling with $4 a gallon gasoline. We could have invested in innovation, helping the automakers retool, rebuilding our crumbling roads and bridges. But instead, we've spent hundreds of billions of dollars fighting a war in Iraq that should have never been authorized and should have never been waged. Worse yet, the price tag for these failures is being passed on to our children. You know, Bill Clinton left behind a surplus, but this administration squandered it. We face budget deficits in the hundreds of billions of dollars and are nearly $10 trillion in debt. We've borrowed billions from countries like China to finance needless tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans and an unnecessary war. And yet Senator John McCain is explicitly running to continue and expand these policies without a plan to pay for it. And that's why we can't afford 4 more years of John McCain. We can't afford 4 more years of George Bush policies. We need to turn the page and write a new chapter in American history. You know, the pundits talk about 2 debates, one on national security and one on the economy, but they missed the point. We didn't win the Cold War just because of the strength of our military. We also prevailed because of the vigor of our economy and the endurance of our ideals. And in this century, we won't be secure if we bankroll terrorists and dictators through our dependence on oil. We won't be safe if we can't count on our infrastructure. We won't extend the promise of American greatness unless we invest in our young people and ask them to invest in America. So there's a clear choice in this election. Instead of reaching for new horizons, George Bush has put us in a hole, and John McCain's policies will keep us there. I want to get out of the hole. I want to climb out of the hole. I want to take us in a new and better direction. I reject the belief that we should either shrink from the challenge of globalization or fall back on the same tired and failed approaches of the last 8 years. It's time for new policies that create the new jobs and the new opportunities of the future. It's time for a competitiveness agenda built around education and energy, innovation and infrastructure, fair trade and reform. That's what I want to deliver as President of the United States of America.